Hi, friends. So this episode actually exists because of you. Back in season 1, we mentioned horticultural therapy almost in passing, and we got more listener feedback on that one topic than anything else we talked about all year. And think about that for a second. Listening to a podcast is kind of like eating a fast food burger. You consume it, you enjoy it, and you move on with your day. You don't usually track down the person who made your burger and tell them how it was, but a bunch of you did the equivalent of that for this topic. You found our email, sat down, wrote it out, and hit send. So when that many of you took the time, we knew it meant something, and we wanted to honor that with a full conversation. Quick heads up before we get into it. Today's episode covers some heavier topics, including suicide, Alzheimer's and memory care, and mental health more broadly. If that feels like a lot today, totally okay to skip this one. And on a lighter note, if you don't currently have a teenager living in your house, you may not be familiar with the phrase touch grass. That's what this generation calls being told to go outside. My own teenager gets mad at me every time I say it. But after recording this episode, I have never felt more vindicated. Turns out there's real science behind why getting your hands in the dirt is good for you. Enjoy.
Hosta la Vista is brought to you by Green Hill Hostas.
Hello, and welcome to Hosta la Vista, the podcast where the shade is cool, the leaves are lush, and the friendship's perennial. We are your hosts. I'm Betsy Peterson.
And I'm Mandy Olson, two hobbyist sisters who love this plant as much as you do.
Join us each week as we dig into all things hosta, the plant affectionately known as the friendship plant.
Today, we're joined by two guests who bring a really unique and meaningful perspective to gardening, not just as a hobby, but as something deeply therapeutic and human.
Today, we're talking about horticultural therapy, mental health, and the benefits of working in your garden.
We're joined by Chris VandenBosche, coordinator of the Master Gardener program in the greater Pittsburgh region and a registered horticultural therapist.
And we're joined by Alisa Bowe Lenhardt from Masonic Village in Pennsylvania. Alisa is part of the recreational therapy team, working alongside music therapists and other recreational therapy professionals to bring gardening and meaningful engagement into daily life for residents.
Alisa is also a returning guest from season 1 and a familiar name in the hosta world as a show judge and a longtime enthusiast.
Chris and Alisa, thank you both for being here. We're really glad you could join us.
Chris, let's start with you. Could you tell us a little bit about your background and how you ended up on the podcast today?
Yeah, that'd be my pleasure. So it's a long and winding story, as people's lives tend to be. I have a bachelor's in psychology, and the bachelor's is not enough to be a practicing clinician or anything like that. So returning to school would be required for that. And so while I was considering what to do with higher education, that kind of thing, I went backpacking. And while I was backpacking, I went to intern at an organic farm. And I fell in love with gardening. And I noticed that the conversations that we had as we were out in the garden were far deeper than most people have in casual conversation. And so being in my 20s, I thought I had invented something new. I thought, wow, I'm going to go home and I'm going to get my, license to practice, and I'm going to do garden therapy, and it'll take the world by storm. Of course, it's a centuries old practice. And so this idea of horticultural therapy sort of sat in the back of my mind for about a decade or so while I was doing other work, until the opportunity finally presented itself to change course and get certified. So at that time, I went back to school and went through all of the programming and internship to gain my registration. So that's today. I'm registered as a horticultural therapist.
That's great.
Alisa, many listeners know you from conventions and cut leaf show judging, but you have a whole other side of your life outside of hostas. Tell us about your role as part of the recreation therapy team at the Masonic Village.
Okay, well, I actually, this is my third year working with the recreation team, and I think it's the best job ever. I love it so much. I get to work with a nursing care facility in which we have a dementia unit as well as just the average skilled nursing facility would have. And I'm so blessed that they really value making Masonic Village like a home. We consider the place their home where they live, and it is beautiful, including the landscaping. And two of the units are on the first floor where they have built beautiful courtyards that are enclosed. They have trees and raised beds and plants planted into the ground, and birds come. And part of my job, they're very lenient with if there's an idea that we have that we would like to do, they support it. And also, if there's something that the residents want to do, we try our best to make that happen. And a lot of our residents like to go and sit in the courtyard on a nice day. And what I have found is that a lot of them either grew up on a farm, their parents had gardens, either flowers or vegetables, or they had their own gardens at their home. As soon as the weather is warm enough, I try to get them out as much as possible. But I do a lot of other things. I play games, I play bridge. We do things with music, art, crafts. We bring entertainers in. It's really a lot of fun, honestly. It's really so much fun.
Before we go any further, we wanted to share a message we received from one of our listeners, Julie Pagano-Poor.
Julie wrote, I just listened to your season 1 episode with Barb Rockhorst, president of the North Coast Hosta Society. Thank you for your addendum regarding horticultural therapy. Briefly, I lost my 25-year-old son on December 17th, 2016, from a completely unexpected suicide. Although I have always loved hostas, working in the garden, the dirt, hostas, and all sorts of seeds brings me a sense of peace not found in other activities. Thank you for your compassion with this topic. And listeners, we did get Julie's permission to share this story with you today.
Julie, if you're listening, thank you for trusting us enough to share that with us.
So, Alisa and Chris, when you hear a story like Julie's, someone describing the garden as a source of peace during profound grief, what stands out to you professionally and personally?
So it is, in fact, a common story, finding peace in the garden. Of course, people find peace in all parts of life. It may not be the garden, but finding that avenue for restorative rest, where you're actively engaged in something that enhances your joy in life and allows you to process those feelings, is really very it's a huge part of that grief process. And it's absolutely necessary to take that time and that rest and the time to think through and feel all those feelings, and to really, especially with loss, to celebrate the joyful memories that you have with that person. And in our busy life, a lot of times that time, that space, the environment for that kind of rest can be hard to find. And so oftentimes the garden is a very natural space to find that sort of healing.
I can add a little bit to that, in that oftentimes when people come to the nursing care facility, they're also grieving the loss of their independence. And it's very difficult to, no longer be able to have use of your arms or your legs, or sometimes your mind. You can't remember things. And so the transition from independent living to skilled nursing is very often scary. Sometimes they're mad, sometimes they're sad, and they don't know how to live life this way. And because occasionally it's a slow process to where they are, and occasionally it's very overnight. Like, for example, if someone had a stroke and they, they go from independent to not. And I think a lot of when I'm thinking about taking people out into the garden in the courtyard, it gives them something else to think about except for what's happened to them.
Yeah.
And they can reminisce and have happy memories, and even just having fresh air, vitamin D, a different view than their room or their dining room. Yeah. It just is a wonderful break for them.
So are there specific conditions or populations where you've seen horticultural therapy make the most dramatic difference? I mean, we kind of just talked about grief, but are there other aspects?
Yeah, so horticultural therapy is one of those fields that's very adaptable. I think most people are much more familiar with therapies like occupational therapy or physical therapy. And those can be used to address any number of physical ailments or neurologic ailments. But horticultural therapy is still, it's a targeted process to achieve goals, just like you're looking for in physical therapy to meet your goals of recovery. And so in horticultural therapy, you can really adapt a lot of activities to that person's goals based on the conversations that you have, the context that we talk about plants in. And that's really all tied to a concept that we talk about as the therapeutic use of self. And so it's not just the garden or the plants or the activity that day, but it's having someone there who's sharing experience with you, right? Yeah. And they're not asking you to do anything. You don't have to perform. You can if you want to, but there's no requisite, there's no expectation of achievement. It's just enjoyment. And that's also a relationship that's very hard to find. As Alisa was saying, that transition in life, that loss of independence, sometimes those close relationships with family members can get a little bit strained. If someone feels like they weren't given full autonomy over the choice. And sometimes you're not because of safety reasons or other reasons. And so sometimes those close relationships can be strained. And so having someone share a space with you and accept your life and your story completely as it is and enjoy a quiet session with you can really be moving.
So I'm familiar with physical therapy and occupational therapy, and those have to be prescribed by a physician to then go get the therapy. Is that the same with horticultural therapy?
That's a really good question. So in the US right now, no, that's not the case. There are other countries that do prescribe green therapy or horticultural therapy or nature therapy. So it's called different things around the world. And the American Horticultural Therapy Association has been working for decades to get there, just the way physical therapy and occupational therapy became, a board-certified profession where there were professional standards, and then it became something that was billable to insurance. And so horticultural therapy is right now in that growth phase. And I was very happy to read at the end of this year, they're going to be rolling out board certification exams. And so they are working towards board certification. So I'll be working on that towards the end of this year to kind of move from registered to board certified. And I hope that within my lifetime, we'll be able to use a prescription for horticultural therapy to get people the help that they want, or as additional modality in conjunction with another form of therapy.
Yeah.
Those sorts of progresses. So
definitely. Oh my goodness. So that clears a lot of things up for me, because I was curious, when you go to the AHTA website, there's a whole list of providers, and, they have little bios about them. And I thought, how do I start this? Is it just me? Does my doctor reach out to them? But it sounds like individuals are the ones that reach out. Is that correct?
So right now, a lot of practitioners are working within existing systems. So within a hospital system, or within a skilled nursing facility system, within a vocational rehab facility, inside of those sort of traditional institutions, in order to deliver the horticultural therapy in a way that's sustainable. Many of the horticultural therapy programs are like grant funded. They're heavily augmented with volunteers because the billing there, again, not quite existing in our current healthcare system to sustain that staffing. And so it's the horticultural therapists who have a full-time job as an HT are rare. But it's really fantastic to meet those folks. A lot of them are doing a lot on a shoestring budget, doing the best that they can to keep the profession moving forward, to show that progress, to show the research and documentation of the progress that can be made.
Yeah, wonderful. Can you tell us a little bit about what's happening neurologically or psychologically when someone tends to a living thing?
That's a really good question, and a very complex one. So it can vary widely depending on what the person, what their cultural background is, what activity it is that they're engaging in, how they're engaging with that bit of nature, a potted plant or a garden or a forest walk, that kind of thing. There was a book that came out just last year, actually, by Kathy Wills, called Good Nature, which I would highly recommend if anyone is interested in learning more about it. Kathy organized her book by senses, so sight, smell, touch, so on. And she pulls together a lot of research, many of it from the UK. She is a British author. And so the British National Health System has some interesting info there. But she pulls together research from around the world. And the really interesting points that she made in her book was that it doesn't necessarily come from enjoyment. It's something innate in our body that enjoys green, that enjoys open spaces. We enjoy natural forms when we're inside of our house or our nursing facility or our office. We have straight lines and uniform colors and bright lights that don't change throughout the day, which is very different from the experience that we get outside. And so even against someone's preference of colors, say their favorite color is blue, they're still going to show a neurologic change when they're looking at greens and whites. And I don't have a good explanation for that other than there's a lot of research going on to figure out how and why. And so, yeah, it's pretty fantastic. Whether you buy into the concept of horticultural therapy or not, I know that everyone who goes outside is getting a little bit from it. Yeah. And so it's really good to keep up.
Alisa, have you come across that with your memory care patients or other patients? Absolutely.
And what I was thinking about when Chris was just speaking was about my local garden club studied Frederick Law Olmsted's designs of gardens. And he is specifically the one that did Central Park in New York City. And a lot of what he did, it just was brilliant. And it makes you walk differently in a garden because of, he does not do a straight line, and psychologically, like what Chris was saying, people benefited from that. And that, I feel like that's why Central Park is so valued, because it is where New York City residents escape, the hustle and bustle.
The grid.
And I've been there, and it is amazing. But regarding memory care, well, I do think it gets them talking. So people are sometimes shy or nervous, or if they're new and they don't know anyone, they will instantly start to say, oh, I had tomatoes, or I had flowers, or my mother had tomatoes or flowers, or whatever it is they had in their garden. And it also gives me a talking point, like if I want them to come out of their shell a little bit. Almost every person has had some experience with gardening.
Yeah, definitely.
Have you seen patients respond to plants or gardening who weren't responding to much else?
Yes, and that I would say is typically with people who are newer residents, because they, it's almost a little bit like the first day of school where you don't know anyone and you're a little bit like, ooh, they're friends already. So how do I get into that friend group? You know what I mean? And so getting outside, everyone, of course, loves the sunshine and they want to go out, and all of a sudden they're in a new group of, potential friends that they can make. And so it might be a gateway to joining other activities.
So I don't know if I mentioned before that one of those jobs that I had while I was thinking about hort therapy was actually at a skilled nursing facility. So I worked at a facility in Virginia. It was a small rehab and residential facility. And we had it was an enclosed courtyard. We did not have a memory care unit. We did have some residents who had some varying degrees of dementia, but not a dedicated memory unit. And there was one summer where one of our CNAs was inspired to do some community work outside of his paid work as a CNA. He came and built, it was an elevated bed garden, because almost all of our residents were using a wheelchair. And so he built this tabletop square foot garden for the residents to participate in. And our residents had already, they loved the courtyard. They'd go out there and they'd sit for 15 or 20 minutes and enjoy the fresh air. But I was really struck by the character that showed up in those square foot gardens. Within those 12 inches, you could see their personality. And it was wonderful. And some of them were sweet and delightful, and some of them were practical and delicious. And I think one of my favorite stories to tell about, I'll keep this as vague as I can, but we did have a resident who I thought of her as sort of an ornery person. And there's nothing that gives me more joy than an ornery woman. I loved her. And so while other folks were planting daisies or basil, she had her daughter bring in onion sets. I thought, yes, you would grow onions here. She was so proud of it too. And I loved it. It gave her an opportunity to talk about something that was outside of her physical complaints, her daily routines and that kind of thing. And it gave her a lot of pride, and then something very practical and tasty at the end of the year. But you can see the personality in that creative space of gardening.
It's great.
I hope somebody fried them up for her and some butter and, something just to get some benefit from all of her work.
Do hostas in particular come up in your work, and how do you incorporate them?
Well, we have a lot of hosta in our garden. In fact, sometimes, I think I get little signals or signs that I'm doing the right thing. And when I saw the gardens there were all different kinds of hosta coming up. Whoever their landscaper is loves hosta. And I thought, this is definitely the right place. This is where I should be. I don't use them particularly that much, but they are beautiful there. The only thing I've really incorporated was really just a demonstration. It was right after our local show, and I had all these cut leaves, and I always collect them at the end because I usually like to put them in flower arrangements. But so many people have not seen the different types there are that my coworkers just encouraged me. They said, you need to bring those in. And I was like, well, I could do a PowerPoint and everything. And they're like, no. Just show them the leaves. And I was like, oh, I can do that. That's easy. But what was fun was the fact that, of course, like a lot of people, they think they have the green and the white and the green. Mm-hmm. The green and white and green. Two kinds.
Yep.
And that, I guess, a lot of times in the 50s when these people were gardening, that is all that was available. And so they were very surprised that there were so many different colors and sizes and shapes. And they really enjoyed it. It was, pretty easy to do. And they enjoyed it.
Okay. We like to play a little game on the show called Is It a Hosta or Not?
We'll give you both the name of an actual plant, and you have to decide if it's the actual name of a real hosta.
And if you get 3 out of 5 correct, you'll win a vinyl Hosta la Vista water bottle sticker for yourself and a lucky listener.
Who are Chris and Alisa playing for today, Mandy?
Nancy Gardebrecht of Lakewood, Wisconsin. Are you both ready?
Yep.
All right, here we go. First one is Lord Puckersheen.
Chris, do you want to guess?
Come on, Chris, what is it?
Oh gosh, I'm gonna guess yes. I don't know how anyone would cook up that name if it wasn't about something.
I'm gonna guess that it's not because I haven't heard of it, but there's so many I haven't heard of. I wouldn't be surprised. How do we do this if we have a tie?
Oh gosh,
Chris is right.
Yeah, Chris is right.
Yeah, she answered. Good job, Chris.
Lord,
and now I have to look it up.
It's a Charlie Quick introduction. He's based in La Crosse, Wisconsin.
That's great.
I'm hoping I get to find that this July, Betsy, when we go to Wisconsin. So, all right, second one is Pardon Me.
I know this one. Yes.
Forget Me Nots.
I'm pretty sure. I feel confident. Maybe I shouldn't.
What do you feel confident in? That it is or is not?
It is. I feel like I've heard that, but I don't know now.
Am I gonna
I'm afraid.
Eat my words again? I swear to God, I actually checked all these this time, Mandy.
I'm going to go with no. I'll lock that in before you go and Google it.
Lock it in.
I've never heard of it, but that doesn't mean anything.
PARD, PARC, PARH. It is not a hosta.
Okay, do we still get credit because Chris got it right?
Yes, Chris got it right. All right, so that's 2 for 2.
Okay, number 3 is Salsa Verde. I feel like it should be a hosta if it's not.
I think it should. There's a whole lot of like guacamole and mango salsa, and so I would say yes.
What do you say, Chris?
As green
I
salsa
would say probably. Sounds like it. Now, are these individual hybrids or are these like trademarked?
Individual hybrids.
Registered.
Okay, so these might be someone's backyard special.
They could be, yes, they could be. But I'm looking on the hostalibrary.org for the answers, and there is not a salsa verde. Now, caveat. There's a salsa, and there's a salsa verde with cheese,
Oh,
but no salsa verde.
isn't that strange?
That was too tricky.
That was too tricky. That's okay. All right, we still have a couple more
But
chances.
hey, somebody out there put that one out because
I know,
that's a
right?
game.
Okay,
Verde with cheese. Love it.
number four. Number 4 is Imperial Palace.
Yeah, that's got to be one.
I haven't heard of it, but there's a lot of royal things. There's Empress Wu and Royal Wedding and
Yeah.
Royal Crest. So it would make me think Imperial Palace is one, but I've not heard of it.
So is that a no from you or a yes from you?
I think it's a yes from me.
Okay.
And Chris said yes too.
It is a hosta, believe it or
This is
not.
stressful.
I know. It was registered by Dick and Jane Ward back in 2009.
All right, the last one, alligator shoes.
Yes, I know that one.
You know that one?
I do. I know.
Do you know? I've heard of mouse ears, but not alligator shoes. Alisa must know. So yeah,
That is, let's see, I'm looking it up. It is a Herb Benedict introduction from 2009.
Okay.
All right, well, what's that mean, Mandy?
What's that mean? They got 4 right?
4 out of 5
right?
correct. Yep.
All right.
Ding, ding, ding.
job. Yay.
Won our sticker.
For Nancy.
For someone who just gardens for fun, what are they getting therapeutically that they might not even realize?
yeah. So gardening can do lots of things physiologically. It can reduce stress, which can reduce blood pressure. It can reduce overwhelm. So if you've got racing thoughts, a lot of times being in a natural environment will reduce that symptom. There's also the giffins like physical exercise, balance and mobility, fresh air. We do have fairly stale air in our houses in the US. And so getting outside will give you a good bit of fresh air. So yeah, lots of things that are going on. Whether you know it or not, your garden's helping you.
Vitamin D.
Or someone else's garden too.
That's right.
You can enjoy your neighbor's garden too.
We're just going to the botanical garden and just walking around.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, is there a difference between growing something and simply being in the garden? Does the act of tending to that thing matter, or is it just proximity to plants?
My first thought was hope is important, to have hope and purpose. And so I feel like there is a difference. And, I think just proximity is great also. But I do feel like it gives you something to care for if you're a nurturing person.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I like that I like that you mentioned if you're a nurturing person. Because that was where my mind was going, was what does that person need to feel? What are they needing to experience? Because passively enjoying a garden can give people hope that, nature carries on. I don't need to take care of this plant. This plant has its own fight. It's gonna keep growing. And some people really do want to have that, need to have that engagement and to be responsible for the well-being of a plant that's in a container or indoors or out in the garden where maybe it's, needs some particular care. So I would always look to the person first to figure out what it is that they will respond to.
That's fascinating that, you put the caveat on is if it's somebody who is a nurturing person. I hadn't really thought about that before, but that makes sense. And plants, almost kind of like a pet, you can have plants your whole life and they are not dependent on the age. Like raising a child, that's for a specific amount of time. Whereas plants, you can just keep raising plants forever. And different than, say, a pet, you don't generally lose them.
And also, some of these folks started when they were 4 or 5 years old with their grandparents. And that is core memories, and they reminisce about, the fun of learning about it from a very young age.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, and I think, kind of like Chris was saying with the sensory garden, we had a Girl Scout come in and do a project for her Gold Award that was all about gardening, and a lot of it was sensory. And what's wonderful about the tomatoes is they have a specific flavor. They have a specific smell, like even just the plant, not the fruit. Like if you get your hands on the leaf, it smells, that smell.
Yep. So
you can smell it, you can taste it, you can feel it. It has little hairs on the stalk. So all of those things kind of come back, especially like if you haven't been gardening maybe for 20 years because you've had to downsize to an apartment and you don't have a garden anymore. So they just love it for so many reasons.
I have seen behavioral changes. I was working with adults with multiple mental health diagnoses. They had serious mental illness issues. And we're working in a vocational rehab facility. It's a day program. And the vocational rehab goal, if you're not familiar with it, is to skill people in, tasks, behaviors, engagements that are required to keep a job, right? So being responsible for tasks, arriving on time, being respectful in your conversation and your word choice, that kind of stuff. So it's it's an all-encompassing kind of, the vocation just sounds like work, but it really is how people engage with the world in sort of a professional way.
In my line of work, we call those soft skills. Is that a term that is used sometimes, soft skills? Okay.
Sure. And so I have seen people who do not, follow through on tasks or are not particularly timely, but they do show up every single day when it's time to get out to the garden. They'll go and water plants, whether anyone has asked them to or not. And so that self-initiation of task can be a pretty remarkable breakthrough. Now, it doesn't mean it's cured. It doesn't mean that person is all fixed, but they have found something that's meaningful for them to accomplish that day. And that's a really powerful thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Having a sense of purpose is tremendous. Alisa, you mentioned that earlier when, patients may be new to the facility, and that loss of purpose, that everybody wants to feel important. Everybody. Whether you are 2 or 100, it doesn't matter. Everybody wants to have some contribution to the wider world. And if that's dragging a hose, great. If that's pulling dandelions, go do it. However that manifests itself. I love that.
I also had an incident where, so in the dementia unit, a lot of them are not wheelchair bound. And I had an incident where, my gosh, we had gotten a big infestation of the spotted lantern flies. And they were just all over the ground. And I brought this broom down and I'm like, I just got to get rid of these. They're scary looking, and they're ugly. And so I brought my broom down with me to do my gardening activity. And this woman, she wanted to sweep like that. She must have always done that and I was like, of course, go ahead. I just had to make sure that she was safe. But she loved sweeping.
I love that.
It was great. I mean, again, it gave her exercise. It gave her purpose. She, it was very surprising to me.
That's great. I love that story. I know we've
Yeah,
told a
mixed
couple of
fruit.
stories, but does anybody have another story that, stands out to you in your experience?
So there was one person who I worked with who had both physical and sort of emotional ailments. There was a physical chronic pain that left them returning to bed whenever possible. So it was either bed, kitchen table to eat, or doctor's appointment. Lather, rinse, repeat.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one day where I happened to be at the garden center on my way to that person's house, and there was some ageratum on sale, which I don't know if you're familiar, but it has this really just vibrant, bluey purple, to me at least. The flowers almost look like they're glowing. So I grabbed those on a whim and took them with me. And so I was able to bring that person out to their driveway. I cleaned up one of their old planters, and they helped me plant the ageratum. And I think that was the longest I had ever seen that person out of bed for anything other than a doctor's appointment or a meal. Which I thought it was pretty special for me. I really, I enjoyed my time with them. I enjoyed their family, but there wasn't a ton that I could do to change that pain, to change that anguish.
Yeah.
But having that moment of fun was moving. And so.
Yeah.
That's great.
That one stands out to me.
The other thing I was thinking about, which I don't have experience with, but I do know exists, is that they have garden programs in prisons for the prisoners. And that's a behavioral change, I would think, to, their street life to gardening. It's a dramatic change.
I can speak to schools. I know that, some of the tougher schools, they have brought in, I don't know if it's a horticultural therapist or just somebody with, garden knowledge, and teaching kids how to care for plants. There was a school in my old city, Olathe, Kansas, where I used to teach, and the school had a central courtyard where there were certain entry and exit points to this center courtyard, and it had gotten overgrown with weeds, and there was nobody caring for it. And so the kindergarten teacher took that on, and she every single day took her kindergartners out there, and they pulled all of the weeds. She showed them which ones to pull, and then they got the PTO to donate perennials that, I don't know if they were hostas, but perennials that were going to propagate themselves in this space and basically crowd out any weeds. And they created this beautiful garden space that every single kid in the whole school got to see. And, at the time I was subbing, and I always loved going to that school because I got to see this beautiful garden that these kindergartners did. It was so cool. So, there is definitely an element to this that it's sort of a, like if our lives are like a water bottle and you shake it up, and then, if as it settles back down, there's an element to gardening that kind of settles us all back down a little bit. So
that story reminds me of that in our school district, we have an excellent, well, she's retired now, excellent art teacher. And she wanted to start a garden that incorporated art in it. She called it the Garten Club, capital ART, and club. And she did amazing things, including the little park next door to the school. They first of all, she incorporated it into the school's curriculum. So the science of plants, the art of plants, like everything, history probably, cooking, using herbs to cook with, all kinds of stuff she incorporated. And then next door is a park, and they did the story walk, where you can read a story and walk through the park. And so reading, all kinds of great stuff you can do with kids.
Chris, how do you use your therapy background when coaching and mentoring your Master Gardener role?
Yeah. that's one thing that has kind of surprised me over the years since I've started working as the coordinator here. Back at the beginning of our interview, we were talking about someone who was going through profound grief. And I have found that a lot of the skills that I developed over time really, come back into play with just talking to volunteers. Volunteers are just like everyone else. They've got grief, they've got, heartache, they've got aches and pains, they've got passion, and they've got drive, but sometimes they need to rest. And so making sure that the volunteers have an opportunity to be heard when they're ready to be active. And I don't want to say giving them permission, but embracing rest when they need to step back from the program to heal or to deal with something else in life. I have seen many of the volunteers feel almost timid asking if they can take a break. I'm like, absolutely, absolutely. All of this will be here when you get back. Please, take care of yourself and talk to me or talk to the other volunteers when you're ready. And I have heard from a lot of the volunteers that they've gone through major life changes while they were in the Master Gardener program, and it was a source of support. Volunteerism is also one of those things that we find really improves physical health, social connectivity, and also improves, quality of aging. And so it's kind of tied up in this magical little garden package where we're learning and we're teaching and we're growing and we're thinking. So yeah, it all kind of comes full circle in this really, really cool way. And I have absolutely loved working with Penn State and with the volunteers here in Allegheny County. They're just amazing.
This reminds me of a phrase that comes up a lot in the teaching world, which is lifelong learners. And, what you just described fits that category, whether it's you choosing to become a master gardener, which that's remarkable. I briefly looked into what it takes to do that. And I thought, I'm not at the stage of life I can commit to that level of learning at this point. But, that plus the people that we work with, the people that we, acknowledge that are in memory care, but yet are still willing to go learn this new task. It's lifelong learning is an amazing task that I'm happy to be able to participate in and do my tiny part being a teacher. But I love this. I love that this is what that embodies.
And sometimes if I'm doing an activity that I really want them to be doing, the digging with the trowel and stuff, and sometimes they're just not able to, they kind of even just enjoy watching me do it. It's almost like watching a cooking show, And so I'm talking about it and talking to them, but I'm doing some of the physical work.
Sure.
Yeah.
Alisa, I'm curious to ask, have you ever tried a hand-over-hand task guidance? Are you familiar?
Yes, I'm familiar with that. And I don't do that often enough. I should do that more. But there is a woman named Teepa Snow who is a professional. She specializes in dementia. And she has lots of videos online that you can watch about doing those types of things. Yeah.
I've not heard it. Teepa Snow?
Teepa Snow, Teepa. And she is a specialist in dementia. And she has really taught a lot of people, how to, family members too need to know, not just nurses. Yeah.
And did you say on YouTube?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can find a lot of information, books and videos and stuff.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Okay. Before we wrap up the games, we're adding a quick lightning round called Hosta A to Z Blitz. Alisa and Chris, this is simple but fast. You'll have 30 seconds on the clock. When we say go, name as many hosta varieties as you can that start with the letter A. Just go with whatever comes to your mind. from the Hosta world. All right, are we ready?
I've got my
your
timer.
back, Chris. I got your back, Chris, because I was just making labels from my return from the convention.
All right. Ready, set, go.
Ready?
Yep.
A Beaker drinking gourd, almost, avalanche, alligator shoes, August moon, age of gold, American dream, Albertine Taylor, Atlantis, Ambrosia. Oh my gosh, how much time is left?
And stop.
Wow, you did great.
Autumn Frost.
You got 10.
10.
Ooh.
Holy cow.
Ooh.
Well, ladies, what is one thing you wish more people understood about the relationship between plants and mental health?
Go ahead, Chris.
That's a really good question. I think the one thing that I would love for people to take away is that there are no prerequisites for being a gardener. There's no grades, there's no qualifications. If you enjoy plants, if you tend to plants, you're a gardener. And that doesn't mean nothing dies. Like I said, there's no qualifications, but to make sure that people give themselves permission to call themselves a gardener wherever they are in their learning process. It's an empowering title. It's a fun hobby, and it will enable you to gather more friends. Lots of people identify as gardeners, and when we share that identity, we start to share a culture and we share value that way.
I like
Well
that.
said.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
a
fantastic.
great mention of culture, actually. And I would have said anybody can do it. And if a plant dies, that's part of the learning process. It doesn't mean you're a failure. It just means you need to figure out what you did wrong and fix those things. But yeah, I remember I did a little bit of mission work in Honduras, and I knew which people were gardeners when we walked back past their little shack cardboard houses. You know, someone had turned a Pepsi bottle into a container to grow plants in, and I was like, "Oh, look, that person there is a gardener." It didn't matter that they're dirt poor, you know. Yeah.
You feel a kindred spirit there, right?
Yes.
You're drawn
yes,
to.
and we didn't speak the same language.
That's very cool.
Yep.
Well, thinking back to Julie's message and others who may be carrying grief or emotional pain, how do you know when it's time to move beyond coping on your own and reach out for help?
I would encourage everyone to reach out immediately. There's no time limit on grief. It never ends. And there's no getting away from it. And so reaching out for help, even if it's just picking up a phone and saying nothing for 20 minutes with someone else on the other end of the line, reach out and share your emotional pain. It is critical to share that pain.
Yeah, definitely. I like that you said right away. Even if you don't maybe feel like it right away, still reach out right away. And where would you encourage someone to begin? What does that first step actually look like?
My first step would be to recommend some care that's actually not horticulturally geared. If there's a crisis going on, if there's been a big change in health, I would encourage them to contact either a palliative care or a hospice care company. There are lots and lots of services and supports that those organizations can provide that are well outside of, I think, most people's common conception of what those services can do. And everyone who I have met who took advantage of hospice care wished they had reached out to hospice sooner. The team on hospice and palliative care groups are equipped to assist in that grief, in finding resources, in getting that help. And if the primary, if your primary care doctor, if your family doctor is someone who can help you find those resources, that's a great person to talk to. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
absolutely. So if somebody listening is interested in, maybe being connected with a horticultural therapist, how do they go about reaching out to someone?
Well, the American Horticultural Therapy Association directory is, I believe, public. So you can go and look up by state the horticulture therapists who are registered in your area, at least. If you can't find anyone in that organization, oftentimes a health system social worker may be able to connect you with one of these, types of programs. It may be a recreational therapy program that also has gardening as a component of it, if there are no registered hort therapists in the area. Hopefully, one of these days, someone will be listening to this podcast and there will be a horticultural therapist within reach of every person listening.
Oh, yeah.
One of these days, it'll be here. But in the meantime, reach out, find help, ask people what resources are available.
Yeah. And listeners, we want to make sure that you have access to the website. It is available at ahta.org, or you can email info@ahta.org. Chris and Alisa, thank you both so much for spending time with us today and sharing your work, your insight, and your experiences. This was such a meaningful conversation.
And before we let you go, we always like to give our guests a final moment. What thoughts or words of wisdom would you like to leave with our listeners?
I would say take a walk in the garden. At a park would be a good place.
Yeah.
There's lots of green spaces in almost every town.
I would say incorporate nature into your life in any way that's accessible to you. One of the fascinating things that we've seen in the research is that you don't even have to physically be in nature to experience the benefits of nature. Looking at a photo of a tree shows improvement. And so get the nature that you're able to get and keep doing that.
That's great advice.
Chris. Honestly, I'm going to say that's something I'm going to start incorporating for the people that can't get out of bed and come to the courtyard. Thank you.
It's a great idea.
Thank you to both of you. This was such a great reminder of how powerful plants and people can be in helping us heal, connect, and slow down.
And to our listeners, if you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to hit follow or subscribe on your podcast app so that you never miss a new episode of Hosta la Vista. You can also find all of our episodes on YouTube. Just search for Hosta la Vista.
And we're also on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and even on our website, hostalavista.org.
If you have comments, questions, or suggestions for future episodes, we'd love to hear from you. Email us anytime at hostalavistapodcast@gmail.com.
And until next time,
Hasta la vista, baby.
gals, we really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you guys.
I loved it.
Special thanks to Green Hill Hostas for sponsoring Season 2 of Hosta la Vista. Green Hill Hostas, home of great new hostas.
And In the Country Garden and Gifts. This is Hosta Country. Visit their website at inthecountrygardenandgifts.com.